Sometimes, the people who hurt you the most are not strangers. They are the ones who showed you too many warning signs right from the beginning, and you still tried to ignore them. Have you ever been there? You feel like something is off about someone, the way they talk, the way they treat you, the way they always make you question yourself. But then you reassure yourself, maybe I'm overthinking, maybe they didn't mean it, maybe things will be different later. And that's when the problem begins. The truth is, toxic people rarely show up looking dangerous. They usually come in naturally, charming, easy to trust, easy to let your guard down around. But little by little, they wear down your peace, break your boundaries, and make you pay with your own clarity of mind. The Stoics understood this deeply. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Seneca. And sometimes, the most dangerous thing is not that someone hides who they are. It's that you already saw it, but didn't want to believe it. In this video, we're going to face the red flags in people that you absolutely should not ignore. Unless you want to one day ask yourself, why did I see it from the start, and still stay? I'm just saying that playfully, but if you want to explore the deeper sides of life through Stoic quotes from more than 2,500 years ago with me, then stay. But if you're just looking for something entertaining, there are plenty of other channels that can help you relax after long, exhausting workdays. There's a truth that hurts a little, but it needs to be said plainly. Not everyone who walks into your life deserves your kindness. Not everyone who speaks well lives well. And not everyone who makes your heart move is safe to walk beside. We're often taught to give people a chance. That's not wrong. But giving someone a chance does not mean closing your eyes. Compassion does not mean accepting everything.
And maturity is not forcing yourself to tolerate every kind of behavior just to prove that you're deep.
The Stoics were never naive about human nature. They were not extremely pessimistic, but they were clear-eyed. They observed. They looked at behavior, not just words. They understood that if you keep ignoring the small red flags in the beginning, sooner or later you will pay for it with deep wounds. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. If you let chaotic, dishonest, disrespectful people get too deep into your life, sooner or later your inner world will be pulled off center too. So today, we're not talking in some distant, abstract, theoretical way. We're talking about red flags that are real, human, modern. The kind of signs you can see in a partner, a friend, a co-worker, a business associate, even someone you've known for years. And the important thing is not just recognizing them, but recognizing yourself in front of them. Because many times, the red flag is not as strong as this truth. You already knew, and you still stayed.
1. They always make you feel like you're overreacting.
This is one of the most dangerous signs, because it does not hit you in the face right away. It seeps in slowly. You say you're hurt by the way they spoke to you. They say you're too sensitive. You say you don't like being let down. They say you're too difficult. You say they hurt you. They don't apologize. They rewrite the story until you feel like you're the one with the problem. At first, it just feels uncomfortable. Then you start second-guessing your emotions, and little by little, you stop trusting your own feelings. That's a red flag. A mature, kind, grounded person may not be perfect. They may be wrong. They may lose their temper. They may be careless. But when you express your feelings, they do not turn you into a burden just because you're being honest. Remember this clearly. Someone who is sincere with you will try to understand you, not make you doubt yourself. In modern life, this sign shows up everywhere. In relationships, when someone keeps doing things that hurt you and then calls you too dramatic. At work, when someone disrespects you in front of others and says, "Come on, I was just joking." In friendship, when you're always the one swallowing your feelings just to keep the peace. And what's the problem? You start carrying the belief that your feelings are a nuisance. So you stop speaking up. You stay quiet. You endure. You twist your own instincts just to keep the relationship alive. But the cost is huge. You lose confidence. You lose clarity. You lose the ability to tell the difference between what is love and what is manipulation. The Stoics teach us to master our emotions, yes, but mastering them does not mean denying them. It means looking directly at them, naming them accurately, and then responding with reason. If someone constantly makes you feel wrong just because you have emotions, that is not calmness. That is distortion. Ask yourself one honest question. When I'm around this person, do I feel like I constantly have to explain myself, justify myself, shrink myself just to keep the peace? If the answer is yes, be careful. Because a healthy relationship may make you tired during conflict, but it will not make you lose your sense of self. And here's what's even more unsettling. The next sign often comes with it. 2. Their words are always better than their actions. Some people speak beautifully, so beautifully that you want to believe them. They promise they'll change. They say they appreciate you. They tell you that you matter. They say the future will be different. But then, again and again, their actions stay exactly the same. That's a red flag a lot of people intentionally ignore because they're addicted to someone's potential. They don't love the truth. They love the version they hope that person will one day become. Painful to hear, right? But it's true. A person should not be judged by what they say when emotions are high. They should be judged by what they repeat when no one reminds them, no one pressures them, no one asks anything from them. If someone says they respect you, but constantly breaks their promises, that is not respect. If someone says they love you, but only shows up when they need something, that is not love. If someone says they care about you, but repeatedly dismisses your time, your trust, your boundaries, then no matter how beautiful their words are, those words mean nothing. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius. The Stoics always lean toward action, not because words don't matter, but because words are too easy. In modern life, this red flag is everywhere. You meet someone who promises serious collaboration, but is always late on deadlines. Someone who promises to behave better, but keeps repeating the same disrespectful pattern. Someone who promises clarity in a relationship, but always leaves you hanging. And every time you tell yourself, maybe they're really busy. Maybe this time is different. Maybe I just need to be more patient. No, patience is a virtue. But patience in the wrong place becomes self-inflicted suffering. Look at the pattern, not the moment. Don't ask what they said when they apologized. Ask what they did after that apology. 1 time may be a mistake. 2 times may be a problem. 3 times the same way is character. You don't need to hate them. You don't need to judge them. But you do need enough clarity to say, I trust what you repeatedly do, more than what you promise when you're afraid of losing me. If that line hits you, then keep listening, because there's an even subtler sign ahead. 3. They disrespect small boundaries. A lot of people think a red flag has to be something big, obvious, like betrayal, deceit, public humiliation. But no, a lot of broken relationships do not begin with one brutal blow. They begin with small boundary violations, repeated over and over. You say you don't like being called during your break. They still call. You say you need alone time. They make you feel guilty for it. You say, don't joke about that. They keep doing it because it's not a big deal. You say you're uncomfortable. They still treat your discomfort like something minor. Sound familiar? Someone who doesn't respect small boundaries will not respect big boundaries when they get the chance. That's why this red flag matters so much. Boundaries are not coldness. Boundaries are self-respect. They are the way you tell the world, this is what I accept, and this is what I do not accept. A decent person may not fully understand your boundaries at first, but once you express them, they adjust. A selfish person is different. They see your boundaries as a challenge, a test of how far they can push. At work, it's the person who keeps dumping extra tasks on you outside the agreement, then makes you feel guilty for saying no. In love, it's the person who checks your phone, controls your relationships, invades your personal space, then calls it care. In friendship, it's the person who only remembers you when they need something, but the one time you're busy, they immediately blame you. Do you see it? The problem is not just the behavior itself. It's the mindset behind the behavior. The mindset that their needs matter more than your peace. No one can harm you without the consent of your inner perception. Epictetus. In other words, the world may be full of rude, careless, overstepping people, but you still have the right to say no. And here is a very practical lesson. When someone crosses your boundary the first time, don't respond vaguely.
Don't laugh it off when it bothers you inside. Don't say it halfway like a joke. Be clear, calm, brief. I don't like that. Don't do that again. I'm not comfortable with this. If this continues, I will step back. It may sound harsh, but it's actually self-protection. Someone who isn't used to your boundaries may be surprised, but someone who truly respects you will adjust. And someone who gets angry just because you have limits is usually someone who's gotten used to other people having none. Remember that. And speaking of anger, we need to move into a red flag that people often underestimate. 4. They are only kind when things go their way. This is how you know whether someone is truly kind or not. Don't watch them when they're happy. Watch them when they don't get what they want, when they get rejected, when they get corrected, when they are not prioritized, when they lose control of the situation. When you say no, a lot of people behave well, as long as the world keeps pleasing them. But the moment disappointment enters the room, the mask starts to slip. They become irritable, sarcastic, punishingly silent, harsh with their words, dragging up old issues, trying to make you feel like you owe them. That is a major red flag, because real kindness is not entirely dependent on mood. Real respect does not vanish just because they are not immediately satisfied. A person with inner strength can feel disappointed without tearing others down. A person without that strength is the opposite. One moment of frustration and their true nature starts showing. Have you noticed? Some people seem perfectly fine in everyday conversation, but the second you don't obey them, don't respond the way they want, don't give them what they need, their whole attitude changes, their tone changes, their eyes change, the way they treat you changes. That is not love. That is control being denied. In love, this is especially dangerous. A lot of people think, maybe they're just jealous, angry like that because they love me. No. Love does not justify disrespect. Care does not justify manipulation. An intense emotion does not justify making you afraid. The true quality of a person is seen clearly in the way they face adversity. If you want to judge someone, don't just look at how sweet they are when they're giving you affection. Look at them when they are denied something small. Can they still stay decent? Can they still respect your answer? Can they still see your feelings as valid? Here is the practical lesson. Don't rush to trust someone just because they treat you well in the beginning. Watch how they react when you set a boundary. Watch who they become when you cannot give them what they want. Watch how they treat servers, junior co-workers, people who offer them no benefit. Because sometimes, the real person doesn't show up when they're satisfied. It shows up when they are not. And if you've ever seen someone's whole face change just because you said no, then be extremely careful with the next sign. 5. They like to control through guilt. This is a very common form of manipulation, especially in close relationships. Because it's not loud, it doesn't have to be screaming, threatening, or overpowering. It is much more subtle than that. They don't force you directly. They make you feel like a bad person if you don't do what they want. You can't help them, and they say you've changed. You need time for yourself, and they say you're selfish. You disagree with them, and they say you're ungrateful. You want to leave a relationship that is draining you, and they remind you of everything they've ever done for you, as if you owe them emotional debt. That is a red flag. Affection is voluntary. Kindness is voluntary. Support, love, care. All of these only have real value when they are not used as tools to bind another person. A mature person may feel hurt when you do not meet their needs. That's normal. But they do not turn that hurt into a rope around your neck. The trap of guilt manipulation is that it makes you feel like you are the bad one, when in reality, you are only trying to protect your own balance. You feel exhausted, but you still stay. You know you're being treated unfairly, but you still give in. You know you are no longer happy, but you still keep trying. Because the guilt is too heavy. Sound familiar?
That is how so many people get drained for years without understanding why. They think they are just being responsible, but in truth, they are living inside a relationship powered by distorted obligation. No man is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus. If you are constantly being controlled by guilt that someone else creates in you, then you are no longer mentally free. So what's the practical lesson here? Separate these two questions. 1. Am I actually wrong? 2. Or am I just being made to feel guilty because I'm not serving someone else's needs? Those are two very different questions. You can be a good person and still say no.
You can be grateful and still walk away. You can love someone and still keep your boundaries. You can be kind without becoming the place where other people dump all their weight. Don't let false guilt make you betray yourself. And this is where everything starts becoming clearer, because the next sign is directly connected to the way a person sees other people. 6. They always talk badly about other people, then make you believe you're the exception. This is a red flag a lot of people ignore, simply because it feels good to be on the special side. Someone you just met starts telling you all the ugly stories about their ex. They tell you how terrible their old friends were, how awful their former co-workers were, how horribly their family treated them. Everyone was wrong to them. Everyone hurt them. And strangely enough, they are always the only innocent victim in every story. Does that sound familiar? Of course, some people truly have been through many bad situations. That's life. But if someone constantly has the same pattern in every story, everyone betrays them, no one understands them, everyone turns out cruel, then you should step back for a moment. Not to condemn them, but to observe. Because very likely, what they're showing you is not just their history of pain. It may be the way they tell stories to protect their image. And here's the more dangerous part. When they talk badly about others to you, you often think, at least they trust me enough to tell me. No. Very likely, they are simply showing you how they will talk about you, once you are no longer standing on their side. A person with character knows how to keep measure, even when they've been hurt. They do not need to paint everyone else black just to make themselves look clean. They do not use other people's secrets as social currency. They do not build connection through poison. Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary and in few words. Epictetus. Watching how someone speaks about people who are not in the room is one of the fastest ways to understand their character, because what they say in someone's absence reveals their honesty and their dignity. The practical lesson is simple. If someone gets a little close to you and already starts unloading all kinds of secrets and ugly details about others, don't be too quick to feel proud that they trust you. Be cautious. Keep a reasonable distance. Don't hand too much personal information to someone who uses other people's stories to create connection. And don't forget this. Decent people do not need to tear others down to make themselves look deep. But there is still one more sign, one that is much quieter. 7. They never truly take responsibility. Anyone can say the words, "I'm sorry," that part is easy, but very few people know how to take real responsibility. A fake apology usually sounds like this: "I'm sorry if you felt that way. I'm sorry, but I was stressed at the time. I'm sorry, but you're not perfect either. Come on, let it go, it's not that serious." Sound familiar? That is not responsibility. That is avoidance. A mature person, when they are wrong, looks directly at what they did. They call their behavior by its real name. They do not turn their wrongdoing into some vague accident. They do not make you carry part of it so theirs feels lighter. And most importantly, they change their behavior afterward. It is a red flag when someone apologizes quickly but changes nothing. It is a red flag when they always have a circumstance ready to excuse themselves. It is a red flag when every conversation somehow circles back to how you were also at fault. Do you know how this harms you? It traps you in a loop. Every time you get hurt, you get soothed by a few nice words. Then you hope again. Then you wait. Then the same thing happens again. And because there was an apology, it becomes harder for you to leave, as if walking away would make you the unforgiving one. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting reality. Forgiveness does not mean continuing to hand trust
to someone who does not know how to hold it. The mistake is not that a person stumbles, but that they keep choosing to stay on the ground. Stoic spirit. The practical lesson is this: stop judging apologies by how they make you feel. Judge them by what follows. After that apology, what actually changed? Did the behavior improve? Did the pattern stop? Did they take initiative to make it right? If the answer is no, then that is not remorse. That is just crisis management to keep you from leaving. And when a person refuses to take responsibility, you will often see another sign come with it. 8. You always feel drained after being around them. This is a red flag your body often notices before your mind does. There are some people, after spending time with them, you feel heavy, not because the conversation was deep, not because the two of you just worked through something big, but simply because you feel depleted. You have to stay mentally tense, trying to read what they mean. You have to watch your words carefully, because you're afraid of how they'll react. You have to brace yourself, so you don't get pulled into drama. You have to keep adjusting yourself, so the atmosphere doesn't turn uncomfortable. And by the time you leave, you are exhausted. Please hear this carefully. Not every kind of tiredness is proof of toxicity. But if someone consistently keeps your nervous system in a defensive state, that is a signal worth paying close attention to. A healthy person may make you think deeply. They may challenge you to grow. They may make you reflect on yourself. But they do not keep you in a constant state of alert. A healthy relationship does not require you to trade away your peace over and over just to maintain it. In modern life, this is something many people overlook because they have become used to chaos. They grew up in high-stress environments, so when they encounter a relationship that is dramatic, unpredictable, full of emotional highs and lows, they mistake it for depth. No. Many times, it is just instability disguised as passion. A calm mind is a safe harbor. Marcus Aurelius. If someone keeps disrupting that calm, you need to look again. The practical lesson here is extremely real. After seeing someone a few times, don't just ask, "Do I like them?" Also ask, "How does my body feel when I'm around them?" After spending time with them, do I feel clearer or more confused? Do I feel like I can be myself? Or do I feel like I have to perform a version of myself to be accepted? Sometimes, intuition does not speak in words. It speaks through exhaustion. And the next red flag is the one that drains you the most over time. 9. They only show up when they need you. There is a type of person who is very good at making you feel important, but only when they need something. They text when something is wrong. They look for you when they're down. They remember you when they need advice, money, connections, support, listening, emotional labor. But when you need them, they fade. They're busy. They disappear. They respond with the bare minimum. They are not really there. This is the red flag of a one-sided relationship. What makes it painful is that it is not always crude. Sometimes they are still sweet, still grateful, still skilled at making you feel special. But the pattern never changes. The energy flows in one direction. You give more than you receive. You understand more than you are understood. You listen more than you are listened to. You carry more than you are supported. If this goes on long enough, you slowly lose your self-respect without realizing it, because you get used to proving your worth by always being available. The Stoics do not teach us to become cold, but they do teach fairness. Fairness toward others, and fairness toward yourself. If you keep pouring into a relationship that only knows how to take, then you are no longer loving. You are abandoning yourself. Be careful with what you become used to enduring. The practical lesson is important. Watch who checks on you when you go quiet. Watch who remembers you without needing anything. Watch who stays present even when you are no longer useful. Real affection is not measured only by how intensely someone wants you when they need you. It is measured by steady presence when you are also a human being who needs care. If someone only remembers you during their storms, but is never there during your rain, that is not balanced connection. And now, we arrive at a red flag that is extremely dangerous. Maybe the most dangerous of them all. 10. You constantly have to ignore the truth to keep the relationship. This is the final red flag, and also the biggest one. It does not lie only in them, but in what you have to do in order to keep staying with them. You have to lie to yourself. You have to excuse things that are clearly wrong. You have to lower your standards. You have to call disrespect imperfection. You have to call manipulation, they're just hurt. You have to call instability intense love. You have to call your constant pain. Maybe every relationship is like this. No, not every relationship is like this. There are relationships that soften you. There are people who make you breathe deeper. There are connections that do not require you to trade your dignity just to stay. The most dangerous red flag is not when someone shows you who they are. It is when you know who they are and still keep rewriting the truth just to make it easier on your heart. Why do we do that? Because we fear loneliness, because we hate wasting the time we already invested, because we believe we can save them, because we think that if we love enough, wait long enough, sacrifice deeply enough, they will change. But this is what Stoicism wants to remind you of. You do not control another person's nature. You only control how you respond to the truth of who they are. Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. Epictetus. That line is not telling you to surrender. It is telling you to stop fantasizing. See things as they are, not as you hope, not as they promise, not as you imagine in your loneliest moments, but as they are. If someone constantly gives you anxiety, that is reality. If someone constantly crosses your boundaries, that is reality. If someone constantly makes you lose your sense of worth, that is reality. The truth may hurt at first, but a prolonged illusion hurts far more. And this is where you need to ask yourself one big question, one honest question, one very difficult question to avoid. Am I trying to keep this person, or am I trying to hold on to a version of the future that may never exist? And if that question makes you go silent for a few seconds, maybe you already know the answer. The Stoics do not react impulsively. They do not cut everything off over one temporary feeling. But they also do not betray themselves just to keep a toxic connection. They do three things. First, they observe patterns. They are not hypnotized by rare good moments. They are not fooled by a few kind days after a long stretch of chaos. They look at what repeats, because what repeats is who a person really is. Second, they speak their boundaries clearly, not with excessive circles, not by suppressing until they explode. They communicate with calm. They say what needs to be said, at the right time, in the right measure. Third, they accept the truth faster than their ego does. This is powerful, because many people do not stay because they haven't seen the truth. They stay because their ego does not want to admit that they placed their trust in the wrong place. The Stoics understand that admitting a painful truth is still better than living inside a prolonged mistake. What can this look like in real life? It can look like stopping yourself from arguing with someone who always twists the story. It can look like sharing less of your private life with someone who constantly turns other people's stories into conversation. It can look like not continuing to date someone who made you anxious from the very beginning, no matter how attractive they are. It can look like refusing to work with someone who constantly breaks promises, even if they are incredibly persuasive. It can look like reducing someone's access to you when every interaction leaves you emotionally drained. That is not cruelty. That is maturity. Protecting your mind from disturbance is your responsibility. Marcus Aurelius. You cannot build a solid life if you keep letting unhealthy people into the deepest parts of your inner world. First, slow down. Many people ignore red flags, not because they are foolish, but because they move too fast. Too fast to trust, too fast to attach, too fast to invest emotionally before the evidence is clear. Slowing down does not kill a good relationship. It only kills illusion early. Second, remember how you feel, not just what they say. How do you feel when you are around that person? After talking to them, do you feel brighter or dimmer? Do you feel respected or constantly tested? Do you feel more stable or like you are always left guessing? Third, trust consistency. A good person does not need to be perfect, but they do need to be reasonably consistent. No one is sweet all the time. But respect should have stability. If today they lift you up, tomorrow they put you down, then the next day they give you an emotional apology, that is not depth, that is instability. Fourth, do not let the fear of loneliness lower your standards. Loneliness can be uncomfortable, but being with the wrong person erodes you even more. So many people stay in unhealthy relationships simply because they fear the emptiness that will come after leaving. But that emptiness is often the very place where you heal, see clearly, and return to yourself. Fifth, remember that red flags are not invitations for you to fix other people. You are not their private therapist. You are not a recovery center for someone who refuses to heal. You are not the one who must carry responsibility for wounds they refuse to face. You can have compassion without sacrificing yourself. You can understand without staying. You can care without harming yourself. That is one of the deepest lessons of maturity. There is something youth often learns very slowly, but sooner or later, everyone has to learn it.
People always reveal themselves. Not immediately, not with a giant sign, but through small details, repeated, quietly. A dismissive remark, a crossed boundary, a blaming pattern, a habit of broken promises, a kind of exhaustion you cannot quite name, an anxiety that keeps returning. The issue is not whether the signs appear. The issue is whether, when they appear, you are clear enough to look directly at them. Because a lot of pain in life does not come from the fact that we were never warned. It comes from the fact that we were warned, but chose hope instead of truth. And yes, hope is beautiful, but hope placed in the wrong person can become a very cruel trap. The Stoics do not teach you to distrust everyone. They teach you not to betray your intuition, not to look away from reality, and not to hand your peace over to people who have repeatedly shown they do not know how to protect it. Maybe right now a certain face has already appeared in your mind. Someone you have defended again and again, someone you have tried too long to understand, someone who, deep down, you know you need to reevaluate. If that's true, then maybe the question is no longer whether they are a red flag. The question is, how much longer are you going to ignore it? Because sometimes, the thing that saves you is not learning how to endure more. It is learning how to see clearly and step back at the right time. And strangely enough, a lot of peace in life does not come from finally finding the right person. It begins the moment you stop holding on to the wrong one.
True maturity is not learning how to endure every kind of person who walks into your life. It is learning how to see clearly who deserves to stay and who needs to be stopped early. Not every red flag is loud. Sometimes it is just a repeated feeling, an unease you cannot quite name, a very small kind of pain that quietly builds day after day. And what is the scariest part? It's when you get used to it. So used to it that you start calling it normal. But no, constant exhaustion is not normal. Always having to doubt your own feelings is not normal. Being with someone and losing your peace in the process has never been normal. Maybe after this video you'll look at a few relationships differently. A little slower, a little clearer, and a little stronger. Because sometimes protecting your life does not begin with one huge decision. It begins by no longer ignoring what you have been seeing for a very long time. If this video made you think, share it with someone who also needs to hear this. And if you want to keep going deeper together into human nature, calmness, inner discipline, and the strength of Stoic thinking in modern life, subscribe to the channel Stoicism for Modern Men. We are not here to run from life. We are here to see it more clearly, live more firmly, and not let the world make us lose ourselves. See you in the next video.